Hi friends, in the last session we have discussed that the difference between method and constructor, right? We discussed that what concept difference between method and constructor. So normally method and constructor, right? So method means name of the method can be any name. Okay, name of the method can be any name, but name of the constructor should be underscore underscore init underscore underscore. Method will be executed if we call that method only. Okay, method will execute if we call that method, but constructor will be executed automatically at the time of object creation. Okay, constructor will be executed at the time of object creation automatically, right? Next, for object method can be called any number of times. Okay, for object method can be called any number of times. For object constructor will be executed only once. Okay, for object constructor executed only once. Inside method we can write business logic. Okay, inside constructor we can method we can write business logic only, but inside constructor we have to declare initialize instance variable only. Okay, inside constructor we have to declare and initialize the instance variable. For method first parameter is self. Okay, for method first parameter is self and it is implicit variable. So same constructor also first parameter is self and it is a implicit variable. So this is what we discussed as part of method and constructor in the last session, and we started that types of variables also. Okay, these types of variables means three types. One is instance variable, static variables, and local variable. Okay, instance, static, and local variables. So first we have to go for instance variable. Okay, first we have to go for instance variables. Instance variables means if the value of a variable is varied from object to object, such type of variables are called instance variable. Okay, if the value of a variable, okay, if the value of a variable, the value of a variable is varied. Okay, if the value of a variable is varied from object to object, object to object. If the value of a variable is varied from object to object. Okay, if the value of a variable is varied from object to object, then such type of objects are called instance variables. Okay, such type of objects are called instance variables. What are the if the value of a variable is varied from object to object, then such type of variables are called instance variables. Okay, such type of variables are called instance variables, right? Next. For every object, a separate copy of instance variable will be created. Okay. For instance, for every object, for every object, a separate, a separate, a separate copy of instance will be created. Will be created. Okay. This is nothing but what instance variables. It is nothing but what instance variables. Next, where we can declare instance variable. Okay. Now we observe that what is instance variable. Now we have to understand where we can declare instance variable. Where we can declare instance variables. Where we can declare instance variable. Okay. Observe the point. Okay, inside constructor by using self. Okay, inside constructor. Okay, inside constructor by using self. Okay, by using self. Inside instance method by using self. Okay, inside instance method. Okay, inside instance method by using self variable. Okay, next, third point. Outside of the class by using object reference variable. Outside of the class by using object reference variable. Object reference variable outside of the class by using object reference variable. Okay, so here what is the thing is where we can declare the instance variable means these are the three places. Okay, these are the three places, right? Now observe points one by one. First let me go for instance variable inside constructor. Okay, instance variable inside constructor. First point, just be careful and observe the terminologies, be careful. Okay, so point number one, where we can declare instance variables means inside constructor by using self, inside instance method also by using self, outside of the class by using object reference variable. So for which object you are creating the class, so by using that object reference also you can create an instance variable. Okay, by using that also we can create an instance variable, right? So now our intention will be inside constructor by using self variable how we can create an instance variable. Okay, inside constructor now I'm going to create instance variable. Okay, let me go for IDLE. So in the starting session I have explained why I'm going mostly for IDLE, right? So make sure you should have clear clarity. So here already is there, but let me write the program one more time. Okay, so now observe here inside constructor, inside constructor first let me take a class. Okay, I'm taking a class employee. Okay, I'm taking a class employee. Next def underscore 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 init underscore underscore. Okay, def underscore underscore init underscore underscore. Next this is nothing but what, constructor. So already I have explained constructor. Inside constructor I'm taking first parameter as a self. Okay, first parameter as self. What I'm doing here is self dot employee number is equal to 101. Okay, employee number is equal to 101. Self dot ename, self dot ename is equal to Sai Kumar. Okay, Sai Kumar. Next next what I am doing, I have declared the two variables. Okay, I have declared the two variables. Here now what I am doing is equal to employee. Okay, is equal to employee. Now here observe here terminology clearly. Print of, okay, print of e dot underscore underscore dict underscore underscore, okay, underscore underscore dict underscore 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 dict underscore underscore. So now observe here along with this dictionary. So how many of instance variable are there? Those are going to display now. Okay, those are now it's going to display. Now observe the program. Python test.py. So these are nothing but what, the instance variable. So where I have declared inside a constructor. You know this is what the constructor. Constructor take a first parameter as the self. It is a implicit. So instead of self, we can take any other keyword, valid keyword argument. Need not be a self. Okay, but self is a implicit variable, just Python defined. That's why I'm taking. But instead of self, you can take your name also. Okay, but first parameter should be, it is implicit. Okay, so by using that, this is the way. Okay, this is the way inside a constructor I'm declaring instance variable, right? Now observe here next point. So once here I'm declaring what is the output, this is the output, right? So observe here, based on this theory, based on this explanation I'm writing, we can declare instance variable. Okay, we can declare instance variable. We can declare instance variables inside constructor. Okay, we can declare instance variable inside a constructor. Inside a constructor. Inside constructor by using self keyword. Okay, by using self keyword. Once we create, once we create, once we create object, creates objects. Once we create object, automatically all these variables are added to the object. Variables are added to that object. Okay. We can declare instance variable inside constructor by using self keyword. Okay, once we create the objects, automatically all these objects are added to that object. Okay, so next thing. So next point, inside instance method. Okay, inside instance method by using self variable. Okay, inside instance method by using self variable, right? Now observe. Okay, observe the point clearly. So now here what I have taken in the previous session, in the previous example I have taken only constructor, right? I have taken only constructor. Now let me take one instance method. Okay, now let me take one instance method. Def m1 method I'm taking. Okay, so make sure it is make sure it is an instance method, but don't forget, if you are creating an instance method, instance method also will take one first argument as a self. Okay, first argument as a self. Okay, instance method also will take first method as a argument self. Okay, now what I'm doing here is the self dot salary. Okay, self dot salary is equal to 10,000. Self dot salary is equal to 10,000. Now observe the point carefully. Now observe the point carefully. So now I have created a, I mean, with respect to constructor, I have created the object. So now here, how many instance variables are there? By default, I have added to the object the moment when you are creating the object. So now here I have created instance method, but let me run that code. Okay. So now how many instance variables will be there? Observe. Okay, now if you observe here, only two, but here inside instance method also I have created instance variable. Okay, inside instance method also I have created instance variable. So why it is not considering? Okay, why it is not considering? Make sure e dot m1. Okay, whenever you called m1 method, okay, whenever you called m1 method, then only instance variable will be added to that object. So now in the previous example, only constructor, object, instance variables are added, but if you observe now, e salary also will be added to that object. Okay, now if you observe here, salary also added to that object. So by using this we can say, the moment object creation and object calling the instance method, then only instance variable are added to that object. Okay, instance variables are added to that object. Clear? So this is nothing but what? This is nothing but what? Inside instance method by using self variable. Okay, inside instance method by using self variable. Okay, so what is the theory here? What we can declare instance variable inside instance method also by using self variable. Okay, the same theory. Okay, let me write the same theory. We can declare instance variable inside instance method also. Instance method by using self keyword. Okay, by using once we create object. Okay, if we any instance variable. Okay, once we create object and create object, we create object and call that method, call that method, then only, then only, then only object, then only instance variable, then only, then only, then only, then only all these instance. Okay, then only all these instance variables are added to that object. We can declare instance variable inside instance method by using self keyword. Once we create object, okay, once we create object and call that method, then only all these instance variables are added to that object, right? Clear, right? So this is nothing but inside instance method by using self variable. Okay, inside instance method by using a self variable. So now the third point. Okay, now third point. Now what is the third point? Outside of the class by using object reference variable. Okay, outside of the class object by using object reference variable. Clear? Now observe here point. Observe the point carefully. So first we discussed that inside constructor, inside instance method. So the same example is the same example. Here I'm taking e dot age. E dot age is equal to 28. E dot age is equal to 28. E dot phone number is equal to something double eight. Okay, double eight something. Okay, something I'm giving. So in this case, by default these are available. Okay, by default these are available. Okay, now observe the output. You observe here age and phone number also are added to that object. Okay, age and those are also added to that object. So this is nothing but what outside of the class by using object reference variable. Okay, outside of the class by using object reference variable. We can also add instance variable outside of the class to a particular object. Okay, we can also add, okay, we can also add instance variable. Okay, we can also add instance variable outside of a class, outside of a class, outside of a class to a particular object, to a particular object. Okay, we can also add instance variables outside of a class to a particular object. Clear? We can also add instance variable outside of a class to a particular object, right? This is nothing but what outside of the class by using object reference variable. Okay, so up to now we discussed that how to declare instance variable. Now we have to observe the point how to access instance variable. Okay, how to access a instance variable, how to access instance variables, how to access instance variables. Okay, how to access instance variable. Okay, accessing instance variable inside class by using self variable. Okay, we can access instance variable within the class by using self variable, outside of the class by using object reference. Okay, so here already uh, instance variables are there. Okay, here I have declared and here also I have declared. Inside here, okay, if you want to access the instance variable inside class, inside instance method by using self. Okay, printer employee number. Okay, employee number is equal to self dot employee number. Print of, okay, print of employee name. Okay, employee name. Self dot, okay, self dot ename. Self dot ename. So in the last session we discussed that declaring. Now I'm accessing instance variables. Okay, now I'm accessing instance variables. Observe carefully. Okay, observe carefully. I'm creating the object and I'm calling that method. So the moment when you are creating the object, constructor block will be executed for the initialization of instance variable. Make sure these are instance variables. Inside constructor, I'm declaring instance variable. Inside in constructor, declaring the variable by using self.enumber is nothing but an instance variable. Okay. Inside constructor, if you are declaring like this, it is nothing but an instance variable. Okay. The constructor block intention is to initialize instance variable. Whenever this object is created, the constructor block will be executed for the initialization of instance variables. Okay. Be careful with this point. Okay. Every time I'm using this pointer, every time. Okay, the moment object creation, this constructor block will be executed for the initialization of instance variables. Okay, the moment object created, constructor block will be executed for the initialization of instance variable. Whenever you are calling this method, automatically the initialized instance variables are displayed in this method. Okay, displayed in this method. Now observe the output. If you observe here, employee number, employee name. Okay, it is displaying employee number and employee name. Okay, clear, right? Clear, right? Hmm. So we can access, okay, we can access instance variable. Okay, we can access instance variables. We can access instance variables within the class. Okay, we can access instance variables within the class by using self variable. We can access instance variable by within the class by using self variable and outside of the class. Okay, outside of the class by using object reference. Outside of the class by using object reference. By using object reference. Clear? Outside of the class by using object reference. Clear? So this is nothing but what accessing instance variables. Okay, accessing the instance variables. Clear? Let me show one more point. Let me show here one more point. Print e dot outside of the class. Outside of the class object reference. Outside of the class object reference. Print of, okay, print of e dot employee number. Okay, e dot employee number and print of e dot name. E dot e name. Clear? So observe here, this is okay, but this is nothing but what outside of the class by using object reference. Okay, outside of the class by using object reference. Clear? This is nothing but what how we can access instance variables. Okay, how we can access instance variables. Clear? Clear, right? So this is nothing but what how to access instance variables. Okay, in the next session, I'm going to explain about how to delete instance variables from the object. Okay, up to now we discussed where to declare, how to access, and how we can delete instance variables also we'll see in the next session. Okay, how we can delete instance variable we can see in the next session. Okay, thank you friends. Thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe to my channel if you're watching my channel for the first time. Okay, please subscribe and it gives me encouragement and comment your anything, any queries. Okay, please subscribe to my channel if you're watching my channel for the first time and share it to your friends and colleagues. Okay, for more videos on technical. Okay, thank you friends. Thanks for watching.